David Heurtel is also here. David's going to weigh in on a couple of stories in the news, former Quebec Liberal cabinet minister and political analyst. David, we just got finished talking to Jeremy Sharon at CTV about this very significant decision to establish this international bank in Canada. There are 4 cities vying: Montreal, Toronto, Ottawa, and Vancouver. He seems to think Montreal and Toronto have the edge right now. And I think we've talked about this before. Montreal has really gone out of its way to try to, convince this bank to come here, because obviously with the jobs it's going to create, it would obviously be great for the city. What do you think happens here?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we need to applaud the efforts of Mayor Soraya Martinez-Ferrada, Montreal International, Government of Quebec. Everybody's really pulling, as you said, all the stops to make this happen. Ultimately, it becomes a decision also of what makes more sense. Everybody's going to be lobbying, making a case. I mean, there are positive cases to be made for all 4 Canadian cities. But one thing that I'm thinking of is that Montreal has something that the 3 other cities doesn't have, aside from the food you mentioned, is the aeronautics sector.
Right.
We are the aeronautics hub of the country and one of the major aeronautics hubs in the world. And so we have research centers, obviously hundreds of companies who are directly and indirectly involved, international companies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My point being is that right now, when you look at modern warfare, the biggest development, seriously, I'm not a defense expert, but everybody has seen it since the Ukraine war. One of the major developments in modern warfare are drones. And so and the technology is obviously part of the aeronautics sector. So I'm figuring that when you look at that advantage, which is tied also to the fact that we have major universities, both languages, because this is a NATO bank. So English and French is a definite advantage.
Yeah, good point.
And so because the French defense sector is massive, right? After the U.S. and China, France is the largest exporter of arms in the world. So I'm just thinking here right now that those are other elements to consider, but I definitely think Montreal can make a very, very compelling case.
To your point about the aerospace sector, yeah, you're right. That's a big deal. I thought when he said thousands of jobs, I was thinking, okay, a few hundred, 1,000 jobs. He's talking 3,500 direct jobs, plus everything else that this would spin off. I mean, this would be huge for the city.
Well, this is massive because it's not just because when we think of a bank, we're thinking, okay, some finance.
Yeah,
guys.
A couple of tellers and a manager. That's what I thought. Yeah,
exactly. We have ideas, but when you're talking about billions of dollars in major infrastructure projects spread out over the 26 NATO countries. This is not a simple thing. This is not just about, okay, I'm gonna fill in a 12-page application and wait a couple of weeks. They're major projects. This is part of the major transformation of our world right now. When countries are moving from 2%, remember a few years ago it was getting to 2% of GDP in defense spending. Now everybody's looking at 5% of GDP. Mark Carney has already announced we're heading that way. But that's major work that's going to be done, and a lot of the money to pay for all this is going to transit through that bank. And one more thing, Aaron, this is another huge move in making Canada much more a partner of Europe than a partner of the U.S.
Yeah, interesting, right? Because, of course, there was a story about a week or so, David, right, about possibly Canada being involved, getting into the European Union. So,
well, that dovetails into one of our other topics, right? Jonathan Wilkinson, long-time former environment, natural resources minister under the Trudeau years, during the Trudeau years, was announced that he's going to leave his seat northern Vancouver, to become the ambassador, Canada's ambassador to the European Union. And that sounds, okay, he gets an ambassador post. Just it's very important, because before we didn't have an ambassador to the European Union. Before we had Stéphane Dion, who was our envoy. And this may sound just a detail, but it's a difference. It's a step up. And so now we're creating the position of a full ambassador to the EU. And yet again, that's another step that shows that Canada is on the diplomatic side as well as the economic side with the NATO bank. We're really moving towards diversifying and intensifying our relationships with Europe. I mean, just in the last few days, you have the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz saying, "Well, look, the U.S. is not on the side of Europe." He said basically that the U.S. is humiliated with the Iran war. Emmanuel Macron of France said the same thing. We don't have the U.S. on our side anymore. Keir Starmer of the UK, obviously for many months now, is definitely at odds with the U.S. And Friedrich Merz was saying, well, look, China is definitely not on our side. The U.S. is not on our side. So we have to develop our side more. And right now, if you look at the Ukraine war, for example, 95%, it's around 95% of all the support that the Ukraine is getting comes from Europe now. Right. It's not the U.S. that is shouldering the brunt of the effort in the Ukraine war. It's Europe. And so there's a massive change, and Canada is playing a big part of it. And you can go back to the Davos speech for more evidence if you need it.
Isn't it something, though, David, when you sit and think about it, to wonder how could we ever have gotten to this stage where an alliance like this, which the U.S. is obviously such a big part of, is slowly but surely, based on what the president is doing, starting to crumble. And I almost in the back of my mind wonder, because of course he says it doesn't matter, and the U.S. has been supporting everybody, whatever else, but then wonder if at some point, realizing that, these countries, all of which are significant, right, as far as trade goes as well, where he wakes up one morning and just, because Donald Trump is prone to do something like this, and just says, I was kidding, everything is okay again, we're all friends.
Yeah, well, I think everybody hopes that will happen, but now you're in more of we have to go at it alone. Now we're coming up on, if you count Trump 1, we've tasted, we're in the 6th year of the Trump medicine, and it's not going down. And the fact is that as a bloc, NATO as minus the U.S., so the European countries plus Canada, that is a very significant economic bloc. I mean, it's not nothing. I mean, there's Canada, there's the U.S., there's China, but after that, as a bloc, it is a huge power. And with NATO and the deterioration of the alliance with the U.S., even King Charles reminded us, and let's face it, both his speeches at the state dinner and at a joint session of Congress, both speeches were brilliant, in my opinion, and one of the things he reminded us all of is that the only time that Article 5 of NATO was invoked was after 9/11. Article 5 being, if one is attacked, all come in and defend. Right. And the only time that the Article 5 of the NATO Charter was invoked was after 9/11, where everybody said, including Canada, of course, we're going to be with the U.S. And so I think right now the world, as Mark Carney has said, has changed. It is not. We can't go back anymore. And I think we have to understand that that's the new reality. And both Europe and Canada are working towards that new reality.
Yeah, getting closer every day. David, last thing before I let you go, I know we had, we talked about Christine Frechette the other day. You, along with other people, other analysts, are saying, you know what? give her credit for what she's done in the short time that she's been premier. This is the question I'm going to ask when we come back of our listeners, the idea that, you know what, based on these announcements she's been making, based on the fact that she's, you know, sat down with U.S. trade representatives and not given in, by the way, important point to mention, right? Is the CAC now a viable alternative, do you think, coming up? I know it's in October.
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet. I don't look. I'm. You know, I have to say she's had a good start, but it's a good start. Next week we're back at the National Assembly. She's going to have to face the test of question period, and trust me, I'm sure Paul Saint-Pierre Plamondon and André Fortin and Québec Solidaire are waiting for her, and she's going to have very hard questions about defending the Legault record, which is dismal. And also to that point, we're the next 3-4 weeks, as you know, it's all the parliamentary hearings on passing the budget, which all these new ministers and ministers that have changed portfolios, including Bernard Drinville, now at Economy and Energy, are basically going to be attacked, drilled consistently and ardently on the Legault record. So the next few weeks, we're going to see, you know, what her new government is really made of. And also the fact is, with the horrible economic news that keeps coming out and you know, it's simply not turning around, I'm just saying she has had a good start, but you're not sensing the type of shift yet, the momentum shift that you saw when Mark Carney became leader of the federal Liberals, where you can sense already with the polling and everything that was going on that there really was a shift in public opinion. You're not seeing that yet. So a good start, but not enough yet to say, we're heading for a fundamental political shift here.
David Heurtel. David, thank you so much. Appreciate it.
All right, à demain.
Unmistakably Canadian.
It's the music that raised you.
The artists raising the bar.
Hi, this is Brian Adams.
Hey, my name's Brett Emmons. I'm from the Glorious Sons.
Hi, I'm Nelly Furtado.
Made in Canada. The station that champions Canadian music.
Loud, proud, and all yours.
No passports required. Just press play.
Tap into Made in Canada now on iHeartRadio.ca
Or the free iHeartRadio app.